Hi, my name is Colvin Carl, and on behalf of the Eltz team, I will be conducting our Sprint 3 end of sprint video. So we'll go ahead and start walking through some of our new functionality through our user stories. So this first one is one that I worked on, which is this new consistent look and feel with the green icons. So we wanted to have these icons match the theming of the splash screen, so I went ahead and designed these. Our next user story was the ability to see a route on a map. This is another one that I implemented, so we can see here a route that we have created. If we go ahead and select it and choose the option for view route map, you can see that route actually mapped here. So these are the actual latitude and longitudes for these 6 cities in Arizona, and you can see that not only are they geographically accurately distanced from each other, but we are also showing the shortest route to go between all of the different locations. The next user story that we have was completed by Jacob, and it was the ability to search for drivers and search for buses in the schedule screen and be able to view tours with such information. So for example, we have a tour here. If we go ahead and click here, we are able to search for tours based on buses and drivers. So for buses, we can search for Benson, and for drivers, or for buses, I'm sorry, we'll do bus 12 and drivers for Benson. And if we search, we can see that it is bringing up the tour here that we have created here. The next user story that we have was as a user, we would like all input fields to be validated before trying to save. So we can see that implemented in all of our different validation screens. I'll show you here for bus, for example. Bus ID has to be alphanumeric, and so do seats. So be trying to type information such as letters there, it will actually be removed. So if I try to say bus, it will automatically remove that text, and if we hit OK, it won't allow us to submit. And that's the same with seats as well, so it will not allow text input. So that's just to make sure that the application is more robust in general when users are inputting data. The next user story we had was to be able to sort all of the lists by different columns. So that was already implemented last sprint for the routes, but this sprint it's now implemented for buses and drivers. So we can see that we are able to sort by the ID or by the number of seats, and same with drivers, we're able to sort by name or ID or other such fields. And this user story and the previous user story for the input validation were both completed by Andrew, and the searching was completed by Jacob. Our next user story was, as a user, if I delete a bus or a driver, I want all tours with that bus or driver to be deleted as well. So this was implemented by Andrew. We can see that demonstrated here. We have a tour here which uses Benson as the driver. So if we go to drivers and we go ahead and get rid of Benson and we refresh, we'll see that that tour is deleted because we obviously can't have a tour with Benson as a driver if he does not work with us anymore. So that one was completed by Andrew. The next user story was completed by myself, and it was mostly the removal of elements of the old memoranda software. So if you can remember from our last sprint, we still had some icons from the old software, both here and in the toolbar, and we removed much of that to try to really clean up the interface and make it feel like the bus scheduling system that we are trying to create. The next user story was done by Stanley. He did a lot of work on a backend for a scheduler so that we can schedule tours and determine availability and other such date-related functionality in regard to tours. Unfortunately, we didn't get to a point where we were able to show scheduling or show on a calendar. We do have most of the backend complete, but connecting that application layer to the presentation layer took more time than we anticipated, but the code is there. The next user story we have is the ability to implement JSON validation and to parse JSON files when we create routes, so I'll show you that. When creating a route in this screen, it's going to ask you for a file, so we are going to go ahead and navigate to a test JSON file that I already have prepared. and we can see here that it has created a new route. And so that will actually validate your file. It will only allow you to upload JSON files, and if you upload a incorrect JSON file, it will throw an error and let you know. And from here, we are able to view the routes like we did before. So these two were completed by me. Another one under this same user story was changing the way that we edit routes. So we used to be able to edit all of this information, but now since we import them from a JSON object, we only really should be able to edit the name. So for example, we can now name this route 1, and it will change that information and save it to memory. And all of these route related ones were completed by me. And then lastly, we have more work by Andrew and Stanley on a user story to be able to use the scheduler to create tours. Again, we weren't able to connect that to the presentation layer in the end, but you will be able to see the code in the repository where they were working on a large system there. Now I want to go ahead and show you our Sprint 3 backlog. So we have quite a few user stories here, 55 points in total. And so we can see that there were a few that we missed, like the ability to see scheduled tours in a calendar view, which was shown earlier. And I said we did have the back end. For example, we can see Stanley here having the scheduler determine availability for buses and other such information. Most of our user stories were completed. We really did a good job, worked really hard this sprint. And we are really generated a lot of business value, and we're happy with what we came up with. As far as the video ending questions, what we came up with. So an overview for how we think we did. We really learned a lot through the project, and through each week as we learned more in the class, we were able to implement these new concepts and really become better developers in the process. So we think we did good. We added a lot of business value to the software. We satisfied most of the requirements. We could have done better with things like quality policies and really being on each other as far as being consistent and really implementing some of the smaller things like unit testing. If we could start this over, I think a big thing to do would be to refactor all of the old Memoranda software and get rid of what we don't need from the start. I think that added a lot of confusion. So I think if we could have really scaled back the code and figured out how we could take control, it would have been better for us. And last, what would we tell future 316 students is really just start as early as you can. And the other thing we said is really basically find a passion for the project. If you actually care about how this is going to turn out, it'll show in your code and you'll create better software and basically create more meaningful changes. So for anybody that's coming into the class, just really try to make it your own and do as good of a job as you can do. Thank you.